What's going on? Boys, thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind the scenes stuff, arm yourselves, life stuff. I'm in a bit of a video slump, so this video might be a bit disorganized, but the core issue we're talking about today is solid. I don't think politics is going to fix anything, especially in governments in which the mob has a say or can have a say without taking up arms. I think this is a soul issue, soul of the species issue, and that's probably why I keep feeling drawn to these soul type politics, like spiritualism, the identity or soul of the land, the blood of the people, that kind of shit. And I probably wouldn't even be thinking about these issues in a political way. I would like not to, but it's impossible not to be engaged by politics. People will force politics on you so they can try to force you to be what they think is an ally, or so they can have an enemy to despise. And if you want an enemy, we don't need to play the politics game. There are tangible things to hate each other for, or spiritual things to hate each other for. I think this rabid obsession with politics comes out of basic dissatisfaction with existence. Politics presents itself as a way for you to fix your dissatisfaction or your hurt, which is probably why the sides or the allies and enemies thing is so rampant. These are not just people who disagree with you when you're, injecting politics into your veins. People who disagree with you are people who are working actively to keep you dissatisfied or to hurt you worse. The issue is that isn't the way politics or policy works at all. Ideology is the last thing on any governing person's mind. Policy isn't designed around ideology. It's a bunch of chains of cocksucker problems that need to be addressed to keep the lights on and to keep heads off pikes. And the differences in these solutions to these problems come more down to which option is going to make life better for the person implementing that solution. You don't factor into that at all. In fact, the more you're dissatisfied, the more rabid you feel, victimized you feel, the better. Because the easier it is to manipulate you. The longer you're in the matrix of believing anybody but you cares about you, the less likely you are to take measures, your own measures, for your own dissatisfaction, or to solve your own dissatisfaction. Letting people vote and presenting it as a battle is genius because it's a tangible way to make them feel powerful even though they aren't. I really don't think you'll see a civil war or anything like that in the United States because upsetting the status quo or any threat to the status quo is a threat to this little bit of imaginary power American citizens believe they have. That's why Joe Dipshit acts like an emperor. You hammer nails for a living. But as long as you have that vote, you get to feel like the president, you get to feel like a soldier, you get to feel like a savior. I didn't realize how much stock the average American actually puts in voting. It feels like if they realized they don't have any power, would crush them. And I think that's the case not only because of the way voting preys on people's dissatisfaction, but also because it makes them identify most with this shred of illusory power. This little illusion isn't just a tool that makes you feel powerful that people can take advantage of. It's more sinister than that. This little shred of an illusion is your identity. You don't exist without it. This is worse than something like right-hand path authoritarianism, in which each individual is the state, and the state is each individual. Because at least in that configuration, the state is a totality. It's a singular, totalizing thing, and you are part of it. With our system, it's like everything is a thread in the wind. Your soul, your identity, your grounding, your justification of existence is controlled by middlemen who serve more middlemen who don't even serve one totalizing totalitarian thing. It's not even as good as totalitarianism. They serve little circles of gangsters solving problems that do need to be solved, but in ways that serve themselves as best as possible. Or, in other words, you remember Deus Ex, you don't even know who you're working for. It's worse than that. You don't even know who you're existing for. You have no roots, and you are on the edge of the bad sort of ego death every day. Or thinking about it like sci-fi AI, you are one of millions of little drones, little Terminators, but you aren't even answering to Skynet. The code that keeps you alive is blowing in the wind coming from no particular source, and it's bad code. There's no quality control on it. And that is the way it always is, but we lack a solid concept. Christianity is supposed to be the core religion of the United States, but I don't think Americans and even American Christians even believe in God. American Christians have subordinated the totalizing influence of Yahweh himself to the government. And it's not even a unified, solid government. It's like people doing a Benny Hill yakety sax routine, trying to keep the house up while people underneath are running in and stealing money and coming back out and holding things up, and everybody's running around and we're acting like this isn't what's going on. You can have issues with Christianity. I have tons of issues with Christianity. But at least there is a core concept to take issue with. That's why I'm so attracted to continentalism. And it's upsetting I'm not allowed to use the N-word, not the people N-word, but the land N-word. YouTube doesn't like either of them for some reason. At least with continentalism, the land is your core concept. Developing your relationship with the land you live on. How do you vote to develop a core concept? Or vote to develop a community based around something solid? Something shitty, mortal, sinning human beings can change on a dime whenever it suits them. Whom do you vote for? What politician can you vote for who will willingly chain themselves to a set of standards they must abide by, even at cost to themselves? Which representative would take measures to address your dissatisfaction when your dissatisfaction is what puts food on their table? And I'm not sure how to word this, but the people in charge are not the only or the orchestrators of this issue. They're the ones benefiting most from it, but Americans keep themselves in this state. I think it's because their dissatisfaction is their means of feeling less dissatisfied. That's retarded, but that's the situation we're in. Because you feel dissatisfied, you address that dissatisfaction by voting and engaging in politics to try to address the dissatisfaction. But if you tried to change the system or to do something different, then you would no longer have that means of trying, at least trying to address your dissatisfaction. And that would make you dissatisfied, but you're dissatisfied because you can't do anything. You feel powerless, and you try to feel powerful by contributing to your being powerless. You feel weak, so you break your arms to prove you're strong enough to make yourself weak. You feel your needs aren't being addressed, so you vote for a system that ensures your needs will not go addressed. It's sick. It's like self-codependence. Trying to untangle this is giving me a headache because I think it's designed not to be able to be untangled. The issue is our identities are based on things you can't form identities out of. It's like your identity is not having an identity. And I'm wondering if things are getting worse because the internet is forcing us or making it much harder to mask that contradiction. Actually, no, it's making it worse. The fact that things are getting worse means the system as it is working better. I didn't realize how pervasive AI has become on the thinking front. I didn't realize people were asking AI to explain things to them instead of trying to figure it out for themselves. Or instead of trying to figure out how to word an idea, they ask an AI to do it for them. They aren't even going through the typical shadows, the news outlets and whatnot, to parrot ideas. They are getting ideas fabricated for them. You have an identity fabricator in your pocket. You're getting even further away from a core concept. This isn't a policy issue. This isn't even a culture issue anymore. This is spiritual debt spiraling. I took a clarity piss and thought about it. I don't think there's a way to fix things. I don't think trying to convince everyone to believe in God or to believe in blood and soil would fix anything, even if you could get everyone on board with it. The issue isn't getting people to believe something that looks or feels like it can't be changed. Because you can say, for instance, you believe in yourself without actually believing in yourself. The goal is to get people connected with something that they can't be shaken on and people can't manipulate. And the terrible thing is that's sort of where we are already. You can't manipulate people's manipulatability. We've already arrived at the answer, refined down to the answer, but it's the worst version of the answer. This video is spiraling now, by the way. We went into this, like I mentioned, I'm in a video slump. So I went into this video with the intention of complaining about political type people and then going into some spiritual stuff. And we got knocked off course. And now this is actually happening. We are actually into some spiritual stuff. I intended just to go into it with kind of a flaccid flinging of the dick just to fling a dick. And now we're in it. I have lately been listening to some Julius Evola, which is a great last name. He is not someone I agree with or am modeling myself or my thinking after, but his ideas are interesting in the primo crazy pills way. I don't understand half of what he's talking about, but where I am in what I'm listening to right now, the image I'm getting is like the state is supposed to be the bones or the scaffolding through which higher people engage with higher powers. I think the divide in essence between the communing with higher powers patrician and communing with mud plebeian is deepening. Equity was a failed experiment, and now the experiment is ending. The divide is returning quickly and violently. And because we're coming out of this equity experiment, I don't think this divide is an essential thing. I think the divide needs to exist, but now that we've tried the equity deal, all the souls and sorts of people are mixed up, and we're determining right now who goes where. Are you a patrician? Do you commune with gods? Or are you a plebeian? Do you come out of and return to mud? My mistake was going into this video and recently thinking about this topic as a mud person using mud brain. There's no fixing this situation. This situation is fixing itself. The ugliness we're witnessing is the fixing. The natural order renaturalizing. This is a you thing, maybe an us thing. We are deciding what we are. Which category are we under? Are we in the pizza category or are we not in the pizza category? That's a relatively recent meme, right? That's not 10 years ago. The reason people, quotes people, are spiraling downward is because that's where they're supposed to go. That's where the mud is. They are returning to the mud. There's no saving them. That's where they're supposed to go. If you want to stop spiraling, your first step is to decide what your core concept is. What is your anchor? What is your rock bottom? Mine, maybe ours, I think, is nosa. No solution, no salvation. That sounds like a contradiction, and it is. If, of course, you are using or reasoning through mud brain. The aristocrat, in contradiction, achieves chim and ascends. The Dwemer mud brain of ultimate logic, in contradiction, ceases to exist. Finding your core concept, or your rock bottom, whatever you want to call it, is like realizing someone is singing your song. All you need to do now is learn how to sing that song so you can join in. Nothing else matters. This isn't an issue of bureaucratic structure. It is an issue of tonal architecture. You go about your life existing in the middle of the great segregation, the divisioning, not the dividing, of form and soul, living in the mud, learning to live well in the mud, all the while singing your song and singing it better every day. And you sing it until one day you are singing it so well, a bird flies by and plucks the voice, your voice, out of your mud form and carries you to where the song is being played. This isn't a policy issue. You can't vote for your salvation. You can't even kill for your salvation. And you can't die for your salvation either. The only way to credential yourself to go where you need to go is to take your thumb and put it in your ass and find your prostate and just touch it. Touch it until the beautiful thing happens. Touch it until the seed leaves the soil. And I'm only half joking here. This is bullshit. you aren't supposed to be here. The fact you are here is a tremendous mistake. You got stuck in the remedial soul class, but you've made the mistake of thinking the entire class isn't supposed to be here. That's not the case. You aren't, and maybe a few others aren't, but the class exists for a reason. Then why, on some level, do I feel the same feelings toward a fascist that I do for a Marxist? Certain Marxists. Shouldn't that be. Shouldn't they be the most remedial? No, because the right ones are using these concepts to get closer to realizing what they need to realize. That's why there's such a difference between individuals within these groups. It's like Alan Watson, the gift wrapping paper thing. They're all different ladders to get ultimately the same vantage over the same situation. We are doomed. If you want to be different doomed, then you need to find your song. I think you can get jump started toward heaven in the mud. This is one of the reasons I'm in a video slump is in my notes I'll talk about things I'm thinking about, but by writing about them in a more thorough way than I originally wrote notes, I feel like I don't need to talk about everything I write down, except when you do start talking, things start clicking in different ways, right? You can write the lyrics to a song, but it's not the same thing as singing those lyrics. Lust is an example of the mud reaching up to the divine. Lust is a strictly physical, chemical phenomenon that is definitely not just a physical, chemical phenomenon. Good lust takes you to a different dimension. And I'm not saying lust is the way out, though there are plenty of people who reasonably think and feel that way, but it is a proof of concept. Within the strictly mud brain, mud body realm, you can find mud things that bring out and lift up your angelic aristocratic nature. It could be an excellent painting as much as it could be a fat ass. Some people actually do like sunsets, and I don't think it's just the social script, just a thing you say. You're looking at a sunset and you don't feel anything, but you tell yourself you do because people say you're supposed to, which is what I think most people do or are doing, fucking trying to have some kind of identity. They're reaching for anything, like Rich Voss looking for a punchline. But then there are people who do feel something. And maybe when you find these things you feel, and they don't have to be, I don't think they have to be strictly physical or sensational, maybe they can be conceptual. I certainly have this feeling about continentalism and the land and the Italian strain of fascism. Maybe all these things you find that get you there, that seem initially to be unrelated, are lyrics to your song. You're on a treasure hunt for the mud relics that will bring out your aristocratic patrician nature. It's not a policy issue. It's a catalytic issue. You're in a race against time to awaken your patrician nature as much as you can. So we'll cut it here because once you get on a roll, it's hard to stop. We'll be here talking because it's free for another 40 minutes if we don't stop now, and we've gotten the point. There's no saving the world we're living in. It's already being saved. The pain and suffering are symptoms of the saving. Your job is to find the components of and recompile your passport onto the higher plane. Or not, but this is nonsense. The longer you try to convince yourself you can make sense of any of this, much less fix it, the longer you'll be miserable, confused, terrified, weak. Mud. This is bullshit. You're a pawn realizing what chess is. You know this is bullshit, but you also are built to do it and have no way out. So, what are you supposed to do? What would you do if you were playing chess and one of your pawns suddenly looks over at you and says, "This is bullshit"? This is bullshit. Is that the way our higher powers feel? How that person would feel in that situation? Because let's say a pawn does look at you dead in the eye, tells you that this is all fucked up. You can't do anything about it. You didn't have any say in making a pawn. That the way your reality is set up, you are designed to view a pawn as a pawn and use it like a pawn. It's fucked up. Maybe that's why it feels like one of my core ascendant concepts is trying to be a good pawn for your player. I want Venus to have a good game. But this is bullshit. Vivek didn't just stop at achieving Chim, dude achieved full Amaranth. The dream doesn't just confront the dreamer, the dream becomes a dreamer unto itself. This is bullshit that I am stuck here with these pieces on this board. I'm not just better than this board, I'm better than the table the board is sitting on. I'm better than the person sitting at the table. Fuck you. I want out. And maybe you aren't equipped to get me out, but I am letting my dissatisfaction be known, because I won't be petitioning you to help me by voting. I will be extricating myself from this situation somehow. Or, if nothing else, I'll make everything very upsetting for everybody. It might be odd for someone to melt a pawn out of a chess board game set. Might be odd, but how much odder would it be for a pawn out of one of these board game sets to start screaming for all of your other higher power friends to hear? I'll pull some Charlotte's Web shit. But again, we'll cut it here. This is nonsense. This is bullshit. Policy isn't the issue. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.